Hello everyone, this is Avatar Sage 7 doing yet another update because all of a sudden today, on April 30, there's at least two updates I had to deal with. One was Outriders and the other one is Guild Wars. So for the Guild Wars update, literally it's their game update notes that will be happening May 11, 2021. It seems like everyone's updates, including Destiny 2, they're all having updates happening on May 11, 2021 for some weird reason. So Guild Wars came out with their update notes that will be happening as of May 11, 2021. So I guess it hasn't happened yet, so I don't have to worry too much about my characters, but it will be happening. So they're making some real massive, well, fairly massive balance changes to classes here and builds and skills, really, which hasn't changed in an extremely long time. And one of the gripes I have with Guild Wars 2 is their skill system hasn't really evolved that much, in my opinion. But they are making some massive shakeups in terms of retaliation being removed and replaced with something called resolution. So literally, it's the boon and condition update section. So they're making conditions a bit more useful. Rather than higher damage on moving targets, it'll be higher damage on uh, still targets, which is what most bosses tend to be. They tend to be standing in one place. So they changed Retaliation, which is a favorite on my one of my builds for my Guardian, from Retaliation, dealing damage to the attacker, to Resolution because they felt it was too annoying for people in PvP and maybe a bit overpowered in groups in PvE because I could literally cause Retaliation to happen on all of the Zerg fests of players attacking a specific boss, and the boss's area effect attacks would cause it to trigger retaliation against it, thereby increasing the speed at which that said boss was killed by all the players zerging it or ganging up on him. So they now got rid of that effect, even in player versus enemy here. So the retaliation boon has now been renamed Resolution. They changed it so now instead of doing any kind of reflecting damage or causing damage back in the attacker, it now just simply decreases incoming condition damage by 33% and stacks duration to a maximum of, if I'm correct in the next section, 30 seconds. So I don't know about that. I'm more concerned about being hit with really hard, high damage hits rather than condition damage most of the time, because if you're in a group, you usually have someone who can cleanse, or you can have a synergistic effect of getting a cleansing effect from, some guy casting a light field and then someone else feeling like some other finisher that trigger the cleansing effect. So I'm not really sure I like this change all that much. I really enjoyed the retaliation effect for Guardians, and now that they changed it to resolution, it's now purely defense. So what used to be retaliation for doing extra damage means the Guardian build that I had before, which was darn, the one with the mantras. I can't remember what that build. It's not Dragon Hunter. It's the other one. So that would mean that that build is now a lot less effective and a lot less useful because retaliation no longer exists. So there's no points. It just simply reduces damage. So now you're just more tankier. Resistance, which used to make you immune to just every bloody condition, it has been changed so that it doesn't overlap with resolution. So now only non-damaging conditions currently on the player are ineffective and stacks duration. So instead of being, immune to everything, they've changed it so that it only affects non-damaging conditions, so that doesn't overlap with the resolution change. And Torment now deals damage every second. I thought that was the case anyways. Torment dealt damage over time. And then deals additional damage to foes that are not moving. Stacks intensity. So now it doesn't extend its duration, it simply increases the amount of damage per second for that torment effect. So now they set up duration caps for boons and conditions. So it's consistent. So everything now stacks durations added from all sources. There are no stack limits. That means a whole bunch of players can now hurl the same boon or condition on an enemy, and all it'll do is stack the duration all the way to a maximum. So apparently you can't stack it forever, and that's kind of unfortunate in some ways because it would be useful to be able to continue that condition constantly if possible without a downtime, but I guess it wouldn't be very down. The downtime wouldn't be very long because you'd have different players casting at different times, if it's a group anyways. With most non-damage conditions, duration stacking to a maximum of 10 seconds, and they aimed to reduce situations where players can become stuck in combat because of a long duration condition, preventing them from using their mount. Unfortunately, oh, I see what they meant by that. So the boons have a maximum duration of 30 seconds in total from all sources, other players, and whatnot. And the conditions, blind, chill, crippled, immobilized, slow, and weakness, have a maximum of 10 seconds so that you can eventually get out of combat on your mount if you want. And this also would be useful in PvP. Damaging conditions apparently don't really have, they only stack intensity, so the duration is almost always the same, so it would always be like, what, 3 seconds, do X amount of damage, and do X amount even more damage because you stack intensity, and they only applied the limit on non-damaging conditions, so 10 seconds max, so at least blinding can be longer than 1 second, thank God, if you have enough players doing the blind effect on an enemy. And so the blind would mean what? Except blind was always a weak one. You could only what, prevent it once per blind effect or something. Sometimes it might be once per second, depending on the situation. They also changed the way mantras work in Guild Wars 2 for the Mesmer and the Firebrand. So they were extremely annoying to use mantra skills because you had to prepare them once you entered the level or the map, and you had to cast it. No one ever, sometimes you forgot to do so, so then you had to do it in the middle of combat, which took forever to do. And so it became a bit annoying, and now they've changed it. So they've changed it so that it all uses a ammunition mechanic. It's always an ammunition mechanic. So you don't have to prepare mantras, they're always ready to go. Firebrand mantras are no longer stronger on the final charge, they always are the same. Mesmer matches no longer do something on preparation. Um, so it does change some of the flavor, but it's more easier to use and understand in normal gameplay, and a bit less annoying instead of having to wait a whole bunch of times to prepare the mantra, especially for Firebrands. Oh, it's my Firebrand Guardian, that's right. So Firebrand Guardian will be a lot weaker because Retaliation is it doesn't exist. A little bit weaker, if anything. So then they have some general changes besides the ones we just made. So to better indicate which skills will deal defiance damage, icons will, within skill tooltips, will now be purple to indicate which skills will deal defiance damage to a boss's defiance bar so that you can break it and actually apply real significant condition and power damage. The exposed effect that is placed on many boss enemies when their defiance bar is broken has been adjusted. It now increases the power damage taken by 30% and condition damage taken by 100%, which is a bit better, especially when you need to kill a boss. Text on many damage increasing profession traits, runes, and sigils have been cleared up to indicate whether they increase outgoing strike damage, condition damage, or all damage as appropriate. Oh, well, that's nice. A little bit better on the quality of life there. The superior sigil of stars now also increases concentration expertise. Concentration being necessary to increase the duration of boons, I believe. If you need to stack things, it'll be faster to stack them. And expertise is the duration of negative condition effects. So celestial stat combination gear will now increase concentration expertise as well. Different stat values have not been decreased. The swoop for the Griffin now deals additional damage based on your velocity. They thought of that now. Okay. They made some changes to the profession skills, either removing them and replacing them with something new, or changing them. The Elementalists, they felt was pretty good since July 2020. High damage, power, and condition builds, but they weren't completely happy. Well, ArenaNet wasn't completely happy with the top end power and condition damage Elementalist builds that all have sustained damage, and they're making some targeted reductions to the power builds and increases to condition damage sources to help condition damage builds shine on bosses and other hard targets. Well, considering the fact they just increased condition damage to 100% after defined spars are broken, I mean, condition damage will be a lot more viable, I guess, now. Used to be, even in previous updates, the power builds were still superior and just taking out enemies faster. So they made some changes to the Elementalist skills and weapons. Scepter, Flame Strike now has a tool casting time reduced by 25%, so it's faster. There's a Flame Strike? I'll have to check that out. Oh, yes, that's right. This is Elementalist. So Warhorn, Wildfire burning duration, it was increased from 2.5 to 3 seconds. Lightning Orb reduced power coefficient per strike from 0.5 to 0.36 in PvE. This matches the existing power coefficient in PvP and WVW1. So I guess the Lightning Orb is being nerfed essentially. Not that I use it that often, but whatever. Weaver, Elementalists, Elements of Rage, strike damage bonus reduced from 10% to 5%, increases condition damage by 5%. So now they balance it out so that it's strike and condition damage, so you could go either way with that for condition or power builds. The Engineer was never that popular, well, primarily with regards to the Scrapper. Though the Scrapper could be used as a healer, it wasn't really that useful except in certain situations. Mostly it didn't have enough offensive boons like quickness and alacrity, so they've changed some of the things. Their utility goggles now, the duration of resistance increases from 2 to 3 seconds. They changed the rifle so that the overcharged shot no longer knocks back the Engineer, which is kind of ridiculous. I never use the rifle's overcharged shot if possible. Explosives, Glass Cannon, they increase the strike damage from 7% to 10%. Ooh, 3%. Not really sure I really care too much about that, but whatever. For the Scrapper, the Kinetic Accelerators has been reworked and renamed. It's now called Kinetic Accelerators. Kinetic Accelerators, when you grant super speed to a target, also grant quickness for 2 seconds. And we all know that boons can stack up to 30, so if you have enough players granting quickness, a lot of people can be very quick for a fairly long time. Applied Force has been reworked to grant stability instead of quickness, and to grant extra power from might. Players now gain stability when they gain might above the threshold. Might grants bonus power, 10 per stack. So it's intensity. Holosmith. They weakened the Holosmith somewhat in terms of Laser's Edge. Reduced the maximum damage increase from 25% to 15% in PvE only, which matches the current value in PvP and WVW. I rarely use the Holosmith. I actually preferred the Scrapper just because of its more tanky nature in the open world. Guardian. The Guardian has always been flexible and powerful, and they did notice, however, that there was too much focus on using just Zeal and Radiant specializations because they have the most optimal trait choices. So they made some changes to Zeal, Virtues, and underperforming Consecration utility skills to better make the two specializations different, and to allow Virtues to be a viable option for condition damage builds. So Symbol of Punishment, which I often used on my Firebrand, they increased the cooldown from 6 seconds to 10 seconds. How unfortunate, because I actually use that a lot. And from 8 to 10 in Worldview World. Chains of Light, the skill now requires the target to activate. I wasn't aware I had that problem before anyways. Staff, Symbol of Swiftness, which I rarely used. Decreased cooldown from 15 to 12 in PvE only. Okay. Symbol of Wrath and the Great Sword. This skill has been renamed Symbol of Resolution because, of course, they got rid of Retaliation. So Symbol of Resolution reduced cooldown from 20 to 12 seconds. Damage per strike reduced by 10%. How unfortunate. So it's been nerfed. And it's also more of a defensive skill rather than actually giving you any real retaliation. If you took the correct trait on the tree anyways. Consecrations, Wall of Reflection, reduced the base damage from 10 seconds to 8 seconds. Base duration, sorry, not damage. Reduced cooldown from 30 to 25. Okay. Purging Flames, reduced radius of from 240 to 180. The skill no longer burns foes across the outside of the field. Instead, it now applies 1 stack of burning with a 4-second duration on foes inside the race when cast, and a gain on each pulse for the duration of the effect. Okay, so 1 stack of burning, and we know burning stacks intensity up to probably a maximum of 30 stacks. Cooldown reduced from 35 to 25 seconds in PvE only. Okay, Sanctuary, reduced cooldown from 60 to 50. Not really seeing how that's going to make much of a difference. Shout, save yourselves, which is what I often use on my firebrand. Increase the duration of resistance from 1.5 to 3 seconds, so now you can stack that more often, or at least for a longer duration. Radiance, Healer's Retribution. This trait has been renamed Healer's Resolution, obviously, since they got rid of Retribution. Now it doesn't. Now there's no damage reflection, unfortunately. Virtues, Inspired Virtue. This trait now additionally increases strike damage for each boon on the Guardian. This effect was formerly on the power of the Virtuous. Increases strike, I guess, power damage for each boon on the Guardian. Okay. Absolute Resolution. This trait has been renamed Absolute Resolve. Okay. Power of the Virtuous has been reworked. Guardians now gain condition damage based on Vitality, 10%. Virtues gain reduced charge, 15%. Hard to say whether that's going to be interesting or not. I have to check my Guardian at some point. Zeal Tree, or Zeal Pathway, or skill set. Zealot Speed. This trait has been renamed Zealot's Resolution. Lesser Symbol of Wrath. This skill has been renamed Lesser Symbol of Resolution since they no longer have Retaliation. Oh, what a shame. Symbolic Power. Symbol strikes no longer charge the virtue skill one passive effect more quickly. Oh, that's unfortunate. Used to charge it faster, I think. Eternal Armory. Spirit weapons now only apply burning on their first strike per cast. Oh, that's unfortunate. Increased burn duration from 4 seconds to 8 seconds in PvE, from 2.5 to 5 in Worldview 1, 2 to 4 in PvP. This is a reduction to total burning from Sword of Justice and an increase in total burning to Hammer of Wisdom and Shield Avenger when used with this trait. Okay. I really liked Sword of Justice, though. Almost no one really uses Hammer of Wisdom or Shield of Avenger. Stoke Demeanor. Fixed a bug that caused a 3-second interval rather than a correct 1-second interval for Firebrand. And matches. Matches no longer need to be charged before use. They now hold 3 charges by default. The final charge is no longer stronger. They regenerate ammunition normally. So that means there's that cooldown of, well, I don't know, 20-25 seconds per charge. Dragon Hunter, Defender's Dogma. This trait now uses the correct icon. Reduce internal cooldown to 1 second in PvE only. This matches the current cooldown in PvP and World v World. Pure of Sight. This trait now uses the correct icon. The description has been clarified to communicate that strike damage dealt increases the distance from the struck enemy. Longbow. So they changed the Longbow. Puncture Shot. Remove the bouncing aspect of this skill. This skill now pierces enemies and inflicts the crippled condition on all enemies if it hits more than one with a cap of 5 targets. Oh, what a shame. Unlimited targets would be far more interesting. Symbol of Energy. Cooldown reduced from 15 seconds to 12. Casting time reduced by 0.3 seconds. Okay. Hunter's Ward. This skill's cast has been reworked. The Drain Hunter will now channel the skill for 1 second and then release the barrage, allowing movement while the attacks occur and traps are formed. No, I haven't used the Longbow that much, really. I've been using a Greatsword, Dragon Hunter. Mesmer. Chronomancer has been too overperforming in damage rolls for all content, so they ended up saying they're going to nerf the Chronomancer. Mirage was underperforming and literally was rarely used except in certain specific situations, so they decided to try to improve or buff the Mirage. How successful this will be, I've yet to see. So Deception, the down skill 2, will now ground target while on land and no longer displaces the player when summoning a clone while underwater. Arcane Thievery, the skill now requires the target to activate. Time Warp, reduced cooldown from 180 to 120. Duration from 10 to 5. The skill now applies a 1 second of quickness and slow per pulse for a total of 6 pulses over a 5-second duration. Manacles no longer need to be prepared before use. They regenerate ammunition normally. Sword skills. Illusionary process skill no longer displaces the player when summoning a clone. I wasn't aware that that was an issue. Illusionary counter. The skill no longer displaces the player when summoning a clone. Okay. They changed the staff, which I haven't used in an extremely long time. Winds of Chaos. Increased projectile speed by 25%. Increased casting speed by 0.1 seconds. Lowered the air aftercast animation by 0.2 seconds. Fixed inconsistency with projectile behavior after bouncing, and this skill now applies Torment for 5 seconds if the first target struck, and Confusion for 5 seconds on subsequent hits to enemies. Allies hit gain Might for 5 seconds and Fury for 3. Okay, that's an interesting change. So then they made Winds of Chaos a bit more of a damaging skill, at least on the first hit before bouncing. Chaos Armor, reduced recharge to 25 seconds. The skill no longer applies a random condition to nearby foes when cast. Instead, it now applies blindness and confusion to nearby foes when cast. So, a bit more predictable in what you can expect from Chaos Armor. Chaos Storm, reduced recharge to 25 seconds in PvE only. For the Mirage line, Chaos Vortex, Staff Ambush. The projectile now only strikes enemies. Up to 10 nearby allies gain boons. So, automatic boons for allies. The boons gained are now Might, 8 stacks, and Alacrity for 3-second duration. Boons are applied near the Mesmer only, not near clones. Okay. Chronomancer, Danger Time, removed the critical damage bonus. Oh, that's a shame. Gonna have to change my Mesmer build at some point. Chrono Phantasma, Resummon Phantasm does only 75% in PvE only now. Well, so it's no longer 100%. Wasn't aware it was 100% before. Seize the moment. Quickness duration for a clone shatter has been reduced from 1.5 to 1 second PvE only. That's also unfortunate. Chaos. Illusionary Membrane. This trait has been reworked. While regenerating, condition damage dealt is increased and condition damage taken is reduced by 10%. Chaos Persistence. This trait has also been changed. Gain concentration and expertise while regenerating. It's a lot of while regenerating parts there. Guess that's why I don't really use Chaos that often. Chaotic Dampening. This trait has been reworked and renamed Chaotic Potency. So you gain condition damage, gain additional condition damage while wielding a staff. Recharge of staff skills is reduced. Okay, interesting, or sort of. I'll have to check that out. Chaos Transference. This trait has been reworked. Chaos Armor grants 3 seconds of protection, reducing damage by 33% obviously, and gain regeneration for 5 seconds with a 15-second cooldown when gaining protection. The Inspiration Tree, restorative mantra, has healed allies around you when activating a mantra, reduced healing amount by 50%. Okay. And they also decided to do some stuff with the Necromancer, which didn't really need much changes, they claimed, but they wanted to help make, curses more viable with improved condition damage or something like that. So they made some changes and improvements in Soul Reaping with Soul Barbs to increase condition damage, and small improvements to the usability of several traits in the Blood Magic specialization. The Axe, Ghastly Claws. The skill now requires the target to activate. Okay, well that's useful, that way you don't end up wasting it when you're not by accident pressing it. For Lich Form Deathly Claws, the skill no longer fires projectiles at enemies located behind the player. I guess that's a kind of nerf in a way. Barb Precision. Increased duration of bleeding afflicted from 2 to 3 seconds in PvE only. Ooh, 1 second. Insidious Disruption. Increased duration of torment from 3 to 5. Not sure I'd be using a bleed build anyways with the Necromancers. So, Blood Magic. Mark of Evasion. This trait no longer has an internal cooldown. Okay, not that I remember using it. Blood Bond. Reduced internal cooldown from 20 to 16 seconds. Blood Bank. In addition to its previous effects, this trait now grants barrier for health gained while below full health at 15% rate. Okay. A bit more tankiness. Not sure if anyone's going to use it though, but I'd have to play around. Soul Reaping. Soul Barbs. This trait now increases all damage dealt, not only power damage. Well, that's a bit more useful for condition builds. Reaper. If using Terror, this skill can now be used in midair so that it better functions with Death's Charge. Okay, that's somewhat more useful. The Ranger is a class I haven't really played that much, but it is an extremely popular damage dealer, and Soul Beast is one of its most popular elite specializations for burst damage. Unfortunately, Arena felt that this was a bit too common and too typical, so they decided to do some nerfs here. So for Sikkim, when merged with Soul Beast, the damage bonus granted is now 25%. When used by any other Ranger specialization or on an unmerged Soul Beast, the damage bonus granted to the pet is 40%. So essentially for a Soul Beast, you just got a damage debuff. I mean, your damage just got nerfed. One Wolf Pack on the Soul Beast line, increase the cooldown from 60 to 80 seconds of PvE. Fury Strength, increase the bonus damage from 7% to 10%. Warhorn, Call of the Wild, reduced animation after cast by 0.5. The pet's next few attacks are no longer unblockable. The skill now dazes and weakens enemies nearby. Enemies when cast. Daze duration is 2 seconds in PvE and PvE and WVW and 1 second in PvP. I'm sure a lot of Rangers Soul Beasts are not going to be quite that happy with these nerfs for the Soul Beast. Revenant, of which I have one character who has both elite specializations, they decided the Renegade condition builds were probably going to get a bit better because of the changes to Torment in the patch, but they felt they were going to make some other changes to the Revenant. Are they nerfs or buffs? Well, they did change Soul Cleave Summit so that it is now there's going to be a cap of how many times you can be healed per second rather than as often as you can hit, so that it's in line with Razor Claw's Rage. Retribution, Spiritual Reckoning. This trait has been renamed Spiritual Resolution because they got rid of Retaliation. Oh my god, I forgot. We do have a bit of Retaliation in the Revenant trees as well, and they just changed that to a more defensive-oriented thing. Increase the duration of the Grand Boon from 3 to 6 seconds of PvE only. Determined Resolution. Damage reduction is now gained while the Revenant has Resolution rather than Vigor. Okay. Retaliatory Evasion. This trait has been renamed Resolute Evasion because they got rid of Retaliation. Vicious Reprisal. The trait now increases all damage dealt rather than strike damage only, which means that's a bit more useful for condition builds. That's nice. For my condition Revenant, I mean my Call's Razor one. Let's see. Invocation. Ferocious Aggression. The trait now also increases damage dealt from life stealing. It was never a big deal for me. Corruption. Fiendish Tenacity. Increased resistance duration from 3 to 5 seconds of PvE only. It was never that long to begin with. Devastation. Destructive Impulses. This trait now increases all damage dealt rather than power damage only. Again, useful for condition builds. I have to again take a look at my Renegade to see what I'm going to have to do to buff his damage or properly redo his skills. The Renegade skill line itself, like I said, Soul Cleave Summit, the lifesteal can now only trigger a maximum of once per second for each effective target rather than how fast you can hit. Callous Fervor. This effect no longer increases ferocity. It now increases all damage dealt by 2% per stack in PvE. This increases to 3% per stack with Lasting Legacy, which is the trait in the tree. The Mace skill Echoing Eruption. Reduced Torment duration from 8 to 7 seconds of PvE only, so that's a little bit of a nerf on the Mace, that Mace skill, which is one of my favorite when using the Mace skill for, was it Renegade or the other one? I never really used this on Herald that much, but whatever. Axe, Temporal Rift. Reduced Torment duration from 12 to 10 seconds, again, so it's a little bit of a nerf because they claim to have buffed Torment's damage somewhat, kind of. Legendary Demon Stance. Embrace the Darkness. Reduce Torment duration from 6 to 5.5 seconds of PvE. Pain Distortion. Increase base resistance duration from 2 to 3 seconds, which only makes it a tad bit more useful, but barely. I rarely even use Legendary Demon Stance too often because it's just too costly. The Thief, which is a class I don't play, they decided they were going to help buff the condition-based options for it. So Detonate Plasma, a stolen skill, reduce maximum targets from 10 to 5 unless you get the trait to boost it back to 10. Dagger, Wild Strike. This skill now inflicts 2 stacks of bleeding for 3 seconds in PvE and 1 stack in PvP. So they started changing the dagger so that it does more condition damage. So let's increase the size of that. Short bow, they also made this more of a condition damage weapon. Trick shot, reduce animation length by 0.2. Skill no longer deals increased power strike damage to poison enemies. Instead, it applies 1 stack of bleeding for 4 seconds when striking poisoned enemies. So, which is the condition damage they're now introducing to the Thief build. Surprise Shot and Malicious Surprise Shot. These skills now apply extra 3 stacks of bleeding for 5 seconds of PvE and 1 stack in PvP and World v World. Choking Gas increased poison duration from 2 to 3 seconds PvE and WVW only. Is now matches the duration in structured PvP modes. Thing with condition damage was the problem that you could always out heal it. So I'm not sure if these changes are going to be sufficient to make condition damage really useful in PvP. But then again, I never like playing PvP in Guild Wars 2, so whatever. In PvE, hard to say what the changes are as I haven't played in a few months, and I'd have to take a look at my characters to see how I can then respec them or retrait them or something like that in order to get the most effective build out of them. Deadly Arts for the Thief. Improvisation. The cooldown of this trait is reduced from 20 seconds to 15, which is a buff. Trickery. Preparedness. This trait increases expertise by 150. Okay, that helps increase condition damage duration. Bewildering Ambush. This has been reworked and renamed Deadly Ambush. Okay, Deadly Ambush. Stealing also applies 3 stacks of bleeding for 10 seconds in PvE and 3 stacks for 6 seconds of PvP. Bleeding inflicted on foes deals 25% more damage, which is good if you want more condition damage. Deadeye. Binding Shadow. This skill now reveals the caster if they are using stealth when the skill begins, reducing the aftercast animation from 0.25 to 0.08, so it's way faster to recast, I guess. They made some changes for the warrior, mostly because the warrior was mostly just support, but the Spellbreaker didn't really have the damage to keep up, and the line between Baron support and damage-oriented builds is kind of blurry, so they decided they were going to change some stuff, because Discipline and Specialization was not doing so hot among the player base. Rifle also got improved. They gave it the ability to hit multiple targets at once, and more utility as a true ranged weapon in general mission and open world play. So Fierce Shot. The attack now pierces but no longer grants bonus adrenaline against vulnerable targets. Instead, it grants 1 stack of might for 5 seconds to the warrior when hitting a vulnerable target. Crack Shot. Instead of granting bonus adrenaline when Fierce Shot hits, this trait is now causes Fierce Shot to deal 10% bonus damage in addition to previous effects. So this rifle no longer has anything to do with melee adrenaline, it's purely about range damage. Not sure how this is going to go with some people, but whatever. Because I suppose most warriors wouldn't even be using a rifle anyways, this might not even be picked up. They got rid of aim shot. Volley was now moved to slot 2 on the weapon. Explosive shell. This new skill takes slot 3 on the rifle, where volley used to be, and the attack shoots a large shell at the target that explodes on contact with the enemy. The explosion then creates a cone-shaped blast that fires through the target, striking foes behind them and inflicting the critical condition and vulnerability. I wonder if this is going to be glitchy or not. We'll have to see. Banners. They reduced the number of ally targets affected from 10 to 5. Discipline trait doubled standards now increases the number of ally targets from 5 to 10. So you have to take a trait in order to make banners the same effectiveness as it was before this change. So I don't know if you call this a nerf or not. Maybe it is. Banners no longer cost blast finishers. They now create a light combo field that persists for 5 seconds after the banner summons. So that means instead of causing blast finishers, they are now field creators for combo purposes. Strength. Peak performance. Reduce the additional strike damage applied for a period of time after using a physical skill from 15% to 10% PvE only. Alright, so less power damage. Great Fortitude. This trait now increases ferocity by 10% of vitality. Okay. Not that many players use vitality, I might add. But whatever, they're hoping that people might. These bonuses aren't exactly large enough for me to think that would be the case. Defense. Call of the Week. Increased damage from 7 to 10% PvE. Only spiked armor has been renamed Hardened Armor. Tactics. Marching orders. Reduced internal cooldown to soldiers focused from 15 to 10. Length specialists. Increased damage from 7 to 10. Roaring, Revile, or Revive. Increased duration of the resistance boon granted to the Warhorn skill call value from 2 to 3. Not really a big deal. Warrior's Cunning, reduced health threshold for bonus damage from 90 to 80, I guess, so that you can get more bonus damage more easily a little bit more often. Discipline, Warrior's Sprint, increased damage bonus from 7 to 10 in PvE. Double Stairs, this is the one that allows you to increase the number of banners again. Axe Mastery, this trait no longer grants additional ferocity for a second equipped axe. I would guess that would be considered somewhat of a nerf. For the Spellbreaker, Sun and Moonsaw, fix a bug that could cause trait bonuses to be temporarily lost after recovering from the down state. The main hand dagger bonus has been reworked to deal an additional 10% power strike damage to foes with no boons. Attacker's Insight. Each stack of Insight now grants an additional 50 power precision and ferocity at level 80 in PvE. Each stack now grants an additional 35 power precision and ferocity in PvP in World v World. Previously, each stack granted 45 power and ferocity. So now it's power precision, which is a chance for critical, and ferocity. Full count. The attack portion of the skill now correctly triggers if the Spellbreaker is in midair, allowing the skill to end correctly. And that's all of the changes they made to the classes so far. I'm not sure how to feel about a lot of this, especially them getting rid of Retaliation for both the Guardian and the Revenant is somewhat hard to say. It was never like the deal breaker, but it had its uses to have Retaliation, and now it's literally just a defense skill or a defense effect. So hard to say indeed. I do like the fact they've increased the amount of condition damage support in the skill trees and weapon trees or weapon skills that are available. But how that plays out and how that's going to change character builds remains to be seen. And in PvP, I don't play that or World v World, so I can't really say for sure. So that's really all there is today in terms of the updates that will be coming out. I suppose this will go live May 11. Yeah, May 11, 2021. So it's going to be interesting to see what the players say once some of the builds they relied on Retaliation or were using that I saw even on for some other streamers gets totally screwed up because Retaliation is now gone and a lot of the mantras are totally different, and even some of the virtues are somewhat altered in some ways, so we'll have to see about that. So if you found this information somewhat more useful or somewhat handy, feel free to leave a like or sub to the channel or support me on Subscribestar or whatever, Subscribestar. And yeah, hopefully I'll have a chance to talk about more Guild Wars 2. I haven't streamed this in such a long time, or played it in such a long time. Well, it's been a few months since I last checked out, but I do log in daily for the rewards. So hopefully there will be a chance for more Guild Wars 2 and other stuff. I also did a video on the latest Outriders patch. Feel free to check that out if you're into looter shooters and play Outriders, and talk to you soon.